In this video, we look at a probable upcoming CSS feature that Microsoft is working on called gap decorations, which is a way of drawing lines between areas in a CSS grid layout, which normally you've not been able to do before. A gap is just white space. You can't draw anything in there unless you're manually adding borders or very specifically placing elements in between there. So it's a very welcome feature. In order to play with it at all, you need to launch basically Chrome Canary with a flag, which we spend the beginning part of the video figuring out how to do that, and then we get it working and play with all the different features that it has to offer, which is surprisingly well thought out, I think. And then we end just trying to write one ourselves in the very basic way where the main content area is separated from a sidebar with just a line, and we get that going. Enjoy the video. Had this open. CSS gap decorations playground. I'm not sure who made it. Built by your name. Your name made it. That's fun. But notice that I'm not really seeing CSS gap decorations. I don't know if you know what they look like, but the idea is that we can put stuff between these grid items with this new, I don't know, would we call it a proposal? Is it further along than that? It's an editor's draft of level 1. Who's on it? Kevin Babbitt. Good job, Microsoft and Kevin Babbitt. This is going to be cool. Okay, here, so now we can visualize it. We want to put, you know, separator lines between these kind of things. I think that's a particularly common thing to need to know how to do. Even in a 2-column grid, you know, you have the main content in a sidebar, just putting a line there is not a huge problem. You just be like, I'll select the second element and then I'll put a border inline start or border left on it. But it's a little weird. It's not as nice as just putting rules between these. I think we'll see. I mean, we'll see. I'm not going to like tell you it's the most amazing thing in the world. We haven't even played with it yet. But notice how it isn't working here. At the top it says right now, this is only feature implemented for Chromium-based browsers, and a flag is needed to enable the feature. But flags, I often think as if we copy this, we can go to like about flags in Chrome. If you paste that in there, it's not there. So it's not particularly clear, but I think it's the kind of flag like a dash flag means it's a command line flag, which means that we need to open it in Chrome Canary and we need to do it at the command line. And I think that's worth looking at how to do. Let me change my thingy to my command line tool here. Ghosty, right on. So if I'm not super good at command line stuff, but I think I know enough to make this work. So if we go into applications, we can find Google Chrome Canary, right? We could say Google, and then it's going to be Chrome, and then if we just tab, it'll find that one. Cool. So if we click that, it's going to open Canary. Or no, if you do if you do that, the dot with the .app on it, you're just going to like go into the folder that is the app. So then we could go into contents, and then we could go into Mac OS, and then there's the actual like executable there. So I think there, if we went, that will open it. Yeah, it had some errors or something, but I can confirm to you, in fact, I can switch to it quickly, that we are in, it has launched the application Google Chrome Canary. Cool, right? But we didn't enable the flag, so if we back out of that, which will close it, I think we can put the flag there. So I'll copy it from where I have it open and just do that. Will that do it? Okay, it's open, and now I'll grab the URL of the CSS gap decorations thing, and I'll put it in there. Oh, I need to share. I'm going to share with you Google Chrome Canary. Oh my God, look at that. We managed to turn on the flag by opening Canary from the command line, which is probably about, you know, I probably can count on one hand how many times I did that. Okay, this page is even hosted at the Microsoft Edge GitHub repo, essentially. So Microsoft is all over this. That's cool. I'm into it. Let me adjust my window. Adjust myself. I can go up here, I suppose. We can see what's going on. Let's just play with the playground at first. Maybe we'll do a real quick implementation of it ourselves to make sure that we get it. I think that would be nice. So there's a grid. I guess we could look in DevTools to verify its gridness just for fun. I always look for the little grid tag here. Isn't that nice to see? Indeed, it is a grid. And the gap in that grid is apparently 30 pixels right now, but I could play with that and make it bigger and smaller. I'm already seeing that the lines in between the grids are centered within the gap. I guess that's good, but they've built in tools for me to automatically do this. So, ooh, I wonder if they're doing it with custom properties. I'm going to resist the urge to look. I open DevTools too much, perhaps. So this column is pretty fancy. It has spanning items. So it's not just drawing like lines up and down the exact rows and columns. It is accounting for and stopping these things when it runs into elements that are spanning, which is nice. And I see that there's a missing element here. That's kind of interesting. All right, so that's the gap, and it's drawing them in the middle. I see that they're two different colors. I assume we'll get to that. Then we have row rule width. So how wide it is. Okay, and it's rows. So we're dealing with the horizontal ones. I can make them quite thick. That's wonderful. I wonder how thick you can go. You know, things like this that are meant to be really small. In fact, I just saw a proposal the other day, or I don't know, it was murmurs about like less than 1 pixel thicknesses in CSS, and I think they were called hairlines. I could see that kind of thing being useful in this situation. But yeah, we can control that width and we can control this width as well. I wonder if we have to control them separately, or if there's or not. What is it? Can we just say rule width and then get rid of this one? Oh, we can. So they're individually controllable, and you could just say rule width, because it's like, how often do you control the column gap and the row gap? I mean, sometimes, sure, but I'd say I write gap a lot more than I do either one of those two things. So that's cool. And then whatever this thing is, row rule outset. Look at what is happening there. And it's a percentage. So what's 0%? 0% means it ends right at the elements themselves before the gap. I guess the percentage is how much of the gap does it bridge. So if we go up to 50%, it's halfway across this column. So it's halfway in there. That's neat. I would have never thought of that if I was speccing this out. I don't think I would anyway. That's pretty interesting. And then I guess if you go 100%, it's all the way touching the next element. So even that's interesting. Like, it's not doing it on these teal lines and it is doing it on these orange lines. Are those accessible colors? Can you all see that okay? What if I go way lighter on the orange? Is that easier to see? I'm not sure. I used to watch a bunch of Cracking the Cryptic, and the guy on there was just obsessed with making sure the colors on the screen while he was doing Sudoku puzzles was accessible, and I always really appreciated that. Fun. Okay. What do we like the look of better? Stopping at the items? Perhaps. It's kind of neat though. All right, so we messed it with the color, and then I would assume we have the same styles as we would borders, right? Isn't it borders that have solid and dashed? Sure, why not? And dotted, sure, why not? Nice little round circles. Don't hate that. Do they still read as circles when they get really small? I feel like when they're at 1 pixel, they read differently. I don't know. That's fun. Why not? And it might as well match borders, and it does. And then we have row rule break. Let me guess what it does. Rule break. Does it mean that these do not touch each other? I actually don't know. None, intersection, and spanning item. Let's try none first. It doesn't do anything. So spanning item and none are the same so far. But if we say intersection, what happens? Nothing. So nothing interesting happening here. I wonder what is required. I don't know. This is going to be the width of those vertical ones. Fair enough. This is going to be how close it gets. Ooh, that seems different somehow. Rule outset. This rule outset was how much, oh my gosh, what is happening here? Is it because we changed this somehow? Yeah, all right. So we had it at intersection before, right? And when it was at intersection, this is how far into the gap it spans. But when we're at spanning item, still does the same. But when we're at none, it doesn't apply at all. You can't have a rule offset when your rule break is none. Okay, there's some interplay here that's interesting. So this works, except for this lets you go way in, away from the gap, which is surprising to me somehow. So if you said none, it would stretch the whole way. But it's not stretching the whole way down here. Oh, it's because I have a negative 50. I have to come up to 0. Okay. And then you can go further, but only a little bit. You can't go outside the element. Although see that tiny little bit of orange up there? I wonder what's going on there. And what's this blue dash up here? Oh, what am I talking about? It's just the title of the thing above it. I was just scrolled down weird. Although look at that. It looks like some rendering bug there. I don't know how well you can see that. Can I zoom in? Of course, that makes the bug go away, but it looked like a little rendering bug. A little bit. Yeah, look at that. Ugh. I don't know. This is super brand new, so not a terribly massively surprising. Unless some of our rules are... No, that's definitely rendering bugs now. Okay. So this outset can be... They're just demonstrating they can be negative value, which means it kind of, whenever it decides to end, it kind of can suck in from then. You don't have to go all the way to the edges. Fascinating. We have the same kind of rules here. That's not terribly surprising. Fun. Deep purple. Thickness. Cool. Column rule break then. Oh, so column rule break and row rule break. If they're both, let's see, if they're both at intersection, they'll like skip each other. That's another thing that I would never have thought of. I'd be like, I don't know. They're lines between grid items. Just draw the lines. You know, I wouldn't have thought of all this different. When do you want that to happen and when do you not want it to happen? Can I get just the rows to skip? Apparently not. Intersection. None. Like what if I want... Well, that is what's happening, right? The horizontal ones are not being broken by the vertical ones. They just plow right on through. Can I get the purple ones to plow right on through? Like I said, none here and intersection here are bringing... It doesn't look like you can get those to plow right on through or whatever that terminology might be. Spanning item, unless it's this combo. Or that you need outset that's lower. So this outset just happens to be in pixels, and this one just happens to be in percentages, but it could go either way, right? So if we said row rule outset, and we messed with it ourselves, could we make it a negative value? Would that be interesting? Negative 20 pixels. No, it just sucks in from the edges, which is fine, but it's not helping our, for whatever reason, yeah. You can't get the vertical ones to plow down through, or at least I haven't figured it out yet. A paint order is the last thing to look at here, and that's interesting. So right now, our tan color, I guess, is over top always. And I just assume we can just switch it around. Okay, so purple's on top. Although that's interesting. Now will it let it plow on through with that? No. Kind of. Yeah, look at that. You can get the top ones to pull on through if the paint order prioritizes the row. Well, ain't that interesting? That's cool. So the paint order is going to be a big deal, probably, if you're doing exotic stuff like this. I do like how this is like requires no HTML, no additional HTML. The first thing I thought of when looking at this is like, that's nice that you can style this stuff and you don't need an element there to do the job. Like if I wanted this line here before and we didn't have this and I was putting an element way on the right over here and using a border, the element has to be there. There needs to be an element here. But notice we get this line down here even though there aren't elements down here. So that's kind of nice. Meaning that this seems like a hop, skip, and a jump away from like being able to select this grid area and apply style to the grid area without having an HTML element necessarily needing to be there. That seems like something people have wanted for a long time and could be done in the same kind of spirit as these things. Okay, so that's with grid. CSS gap decorations, but we know that gap works with flexbox and column layout too. So I think this playground continues. Gap, the rule, works with flexbox as well. So that's kind of interesting. Is there anything in this list that's not in the other list? I don't think so. So that's good to know. There's nothing else to learn. It's not like, oh, I switched to Flexbox, so I have to like learn a new set of stuff. That is not the case here. We could make red real thick and green real not thick. Sure. That's cool. Somehow it's more appealing to me that like grid is somehow just more interesting to me because it's, I don't know, you're being more emphatic about what you want the layout to be. Whereas in Flexbox, it's like, I don't even know where things are going to be. That's the point, is that it's a little more flexible. I'm sure it will be useful at some point though. Cool. And then multi-column layout. Interesting. Did they put anything to do weird stuff with the column rule outset? That's that. Why would that matter? Row rule width. Look at that bug. Buggy. I'm not sure what this stuff would even matter in this very simple setup. Maybe it just doesn't. But yeah, putting the lines between columns is just nice in columns. I don't know that you'd need it all the time, but otherwise this has like the least possibility of doing that because there are no HTML elements to apply borders to. Like, sure, that's a UL or whatever, but you can't say like, if I want this line here, I can't like, I don't know what's going to land where. I assume if I resize this, it would, yeah, different elements are in different columns depending on what's going on there. So yeah, you just wouldn't know, would ya? Cool. Anyway, so that's a thing we can do now. Can we just do it real simply? I'm probably not logged into CodePen in this browser, or am I? Ooh, I am. That rules. So if all we were doing was making a 2-column layout within our main, let's say, so we had like we could make main a grid, right? Class is grid. And then there's a main content area, I guess. Main content and an aside. Sure. That means we'll get rid of most of this for now. Like dot grid is a display grid. Dot grid is a display grid, and it definitely has a gap in it. Let's put a big old gap between it, and then we'll say the grid template columns are, I don't know, 3FR, 1FR, so it's sidebar like, and we could say that each of them has a background white on it or something, so we can see that they're different and we can see the gap between them, but of course there's no content in them, so we don't see anything. Hey, Stevens Mitchell. Yeah, this is the CodePen 2.0 editor in private beta. Feel free to shoot me an email if you'd like to check it out. Maybe we'll go DVH. Okay, cool. So that's that gap between it. I've already forgotten what the rules are. I guess the playground isn't really telling us what the name of the rules are, really. Let's see, though. Let's say we just want the vertical ones. What is the name of the property for just vertical only? Column rule. That's as simple as that. I guess you'd put it here. One pick solid red, and maybe we'll stop doing the whiteness. Yeah, it's really just as simple as that. You just say. And let's say we didn't want to go all the way to the, let's see, it's already not going to the very top of the preview, is it? Oh, it is. It's just hard to see because of the background of this. Let's not do this stuff. Ooh, my video froze, didn't it? Oh, there, it kicked back on. I wonder why the camera decides to do that. Couldn't tell you. Yeah, so we can see now the red line hitting the top. But let's do that one little thing where it pushes away from the top. Which property was that? Outset. Is it outset? But we want the column one. And that's the one we want to be negative. So column rule outset. Why did they capitalize these? They might as well just made it the CSS property exactly instead of capitalizing it. That's why you gotta hire me to know stuff. Column rule. Look at they're already being populated in our autocomplete, which makes me think our autocomplete asks the browser for what these things are. Because there's no way we updated a package that knew what they were. All right, you'd think I'd know stuff like that. But column rule outset. So we pushed that line away, which I'm sure is very hard to see. So we'll make it 10 pixels big. We pushed that away from the top and the bottom 1 rem. We could have probably made it 10 rem, and it will continue pushing to the inside. Probably. Or it will just freak out and die. There it goes. All right. Well, fascinating. That's really all I had planned today, was just to learn that this thing exists. And kind of mercifully, there's a new property, meaning that @supports will work with it. So this stuff that's new, you could go @supports and then just copy this whole declaration, I guess. Am I using that word correctly? Rules? Yeah, it's a declaration, right? Not a rule set. A thing that's just a property and a value is a declaration, I guess. And then we'd put this stuff in here. We could do multiple things. We only really need to test the one thing. So that's going to work. And now we have an opportunity to do something else. So if this was more likely is just like a black line or something, I guess we probably wouldn't use that. It was just a fun test. But this is separating now a main content area and whatever. And if I come back, then let me paste the URL and then change what I'm sharing back to Arc. It's not working, which is not terribly surprising because it isn't supported in this version of Chrome, or we didn't open it with the flag from the command line like we did earlier. But this is supported now. So can you do an else with supports? How does that work? I thought you could at one point, or do you still have to duplicate yourself? Do I have to do this and then is it not? CSS supports not. Supports, look for the keyword not. Support condition, you can use and. The not operator, you just say not before it. So if you don't support it, because it's kind of nice to write mutually exclusive styles in this case, I think, then you'd go the aside, I guess. You'd just pick one or the other and go border left or border inline start 1 pick solid black. But that's like now has become part of the box model of this aside element. Is it not tall enough? Shouldn't that be making it tall enough? Is that support query not working? Ooh, I just assumed that was going to work. Now we have a side quest to go on. So this aside, you'd think would be selected by that, because column rule is certainly not supported. So grid, so that's a tricky one. It's like column rule. That's a thing that exists. So the supports rule is saying that it's supported, although it's clearly not supported. Fun. So what would we do? Can we pick one of the more esoteric ones of these rules from the playground? I'll switch to the playground quick just so we're together on this journey. What's the most like weird one? Row rule outset? That's pretty weird. My guess is that maybe column rule is like an old school CSS thing or something. And that's why it's supported. Y capitals, row rule outset 1 pixel. That probably doesn't exist, right? Right, arc? So this grid, this aside then would start to be selected. If it supports that, do that. Oh, I see. We have to put it in both places. I have a feeling column rule just had some old school meaning or something. Yes, thank you. So that's newfangled enough that this only slightly outdated version of Chrome is saying, oh, I don't know what that is. So apply the rest of these styles. So we have that there and that there. Would you actually write that CSS? Would you, chat, write that CSS? Maybe. I don't know. It's like I'm always torn on stuff like that. It's like if you're going this far and this is pretty much fine and works, like why write it 2 different ways? A lot of times I'm very tempted to be like, well, just do this then. Like you can see that I'm collaborating with myself because I have this pen open in 2 browsers. So it's like, it's communicating through the cloud and making sure that whoever types in whatever browser is making sure those get synced and all that. It's a very nice feature of the new editor. I say that we had collab mode or have collab mode in the current editor, but this is 10 times nicer for lots of reasons. Yeah, I don't know that I would. It's nice to know that you can. What is that? Oh, can you guys see that? Is that Grammarly? It's fascinating that it puts it in the perfect position there. Oh, I'm sharing the wrong browser, right? Arc. So Arc is working because row rule outset is newfangled enough that it's not supported. So this query evaluates to true or however you want to say it. And then that happens. I'm just so interested that Grammarly kicks in there. Oh, you can't see it because I'm only sharing one, or maybe my face is in the way. Is that more the case? No, it's just I'm not sharing that app and it's like overlaying on the app or something. But there's an app called Grammarly that helps you write better that's interfering in here, but it's doing it in a kind of classy way, weirdly. All right. Well, that's the CSS grid gap decorations. I'm going to say clap, clap, clap. Great addition to CSS. I'm not sure who's going to pick it up and when, if the spec is considered done. I don't know any of those details. I'm not sure that I would just start chipping it right away, but it looks like it's been very well considered. There's a couple of rendering bugs to figure out that we discovered, but I'm not sure I'm like filthy with feedback about it. I think it's just kind of a nice feature and like ship it, I guess, and then while you're in there, add the ability to target grid areas in CSS and style them. Good enough. Let's call that a stream, friends. Thanks so much. And I've seen you a bunch, Kick808. Thanks for hanging out in particular. You're a good hanger-outer. Be good.